Oh, good
Good
morning, folks.
morning.
All righty. So I'm going to turn on my chat box to make sure everybody can hear me so I can speak to you guys. All righty. Anybody who has their microphone on and doesn't want to be heard, or you don't want your background to be heard, go ahead and mute your microphone, mute your video, turn off your video, and we'll get started in just a second. We're going to let a few other people in, but let me first of all open up the chat box if I might. Okay. And if you can hear me, and if I'm not talking to myself, just go ahead and put it in the chat box while I'll open it up that you can hear me. Okay. Chat. Good morning. Very good. All right. Sounds good. So I have a little small Android to the right, to the left side of me, and I can actually see the chat box. We're going to get rock and roll in a second. All right. Hope everybody's feeling good today. Are you feeling good? If you put it in the chat box and communicate with me, I'd appreciate it. So if you're feeling good and this has been a good week for you, just say, yes, it has. All right. And let's give gratitude for that. What do my friends call it? He calls it vitamin G. Let's give gratitude to the fact that we're alive, we're kicking, and actually this is a pretty good day. So the glass to me is always half full. All right. So there's some bad things going on around us, sure. Some financial things going on around us, sure. But I see it all as an opportunity. Hope you do too. All right. Well, let's see. It's been a great day. I give it a few more seconds, and I'm going to again make an effort. I'm going to make a strong effort at trying to keep this under an hour. I'm going to give it a shot at going for 45 minutes. All right. So I have to get started here pretty soon, let a few other people in so we can get rock and roll. All right. Okay. This is the first time I put my goggles on. See if I can share my slides. Uh-oh. PowerPoint. All right. Yeah, something always messes up. Let's see if this is it. I don't know. Okay. So I think you can see my slides. And again, if you're in the chat box, if you say you see the slides, let's continue to share. All right. So you'll see some other stuff. All right. Somebody said they never received the food list from last week. All right. My bad. I'll get it to you. All right. Everybody can see the slides. So we're talking about protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Okay. So today, what we're going to do is expand on that a little bit because we talk about the science behind it, but I want you to be really, really clear as to what it is I'm trying to get across to you. Protein, fiber, and healthy fats. And I'm telling you that each of your meals that you consume will have to have those components in it. You don't have to, but I'd like you to have those components in it. And today we're going to explain why. Because a lot of people taking protein. So yeah, I take my protein first. I'm great, right, Doc? Almost. Did you take in your fiber and your healthy fats? No, no, no. But my bowels are moving just fine. I don't need that much fiber. And I've heard that even though I've actually operated on a person that has been to these webinars for a year. So it means that they're thinking that fiber is still about bowel movements after all that they've heard. And it makes me feel like, okay, I'm not doing a great job. So I'm going to try to do better. All right. The fiber and the bowel movement thing, yeah, that's just a side effect of the fiber. Sure, it makes the bowels go better. And it's mostly from insoluble fiber. But the soluble fiber that I want you to get has a specific goal, has a specific function that's way more important than bowel movements. Yeah, having your bowels move every single day and all that is a good thing because obviously the colon cancer incidence and all that. Sure. But even more important than that is what that fiber is doing in our particular case for our GLP-1. So there are a lot of things in medicine that we could talk about, but today we're going to talk about what foods to eat, how these three macronutrients impact our GLP-1 levels, okay? So it says protein, fiber, and healthy fats. So now, what are we supposed to eat? All right. Put my glasses on again. All right, let's rock and roll. All right. So I always start these, I don't always. My little sister told me I should, and I'll end up hopefully with the questions to you as well. These are the questions for you, and I'd like you to be able to, if you want to put it into the chat, fine. If you don't want to participate, I'm okay with that. This is a free country. The questions for you today, and so there are certain things on my screen that I'm seeing. So if I indeed pull a little pause on you, it's because I'm manipulating things on my screen. All right, let's see. Okay. So these are the questions. You put it in the chat box. What is GLP-1? Glucagon-like polypeptide 1. This is an open book test, and I'm going to be giving you the answers as we go along. So it's an easy test. So you can guess all you want to, and you'll never be wrong. Okay? Because I'm going to give you the answers. Number two, what are the three main functions of GLP-1? Okay. Number three, oh, number three, question three. What are the three food nutrients that strongly activate GLP-1? All right, what do we start this talk off with? What are the three food nutrients that strongly activate GLP-1? All right, and then we get into the dark part of the talk. What are the seed oils? And what's the most common seed oil we consume in our diet every day? 82 grams worth of it. And then the lighter part of how much protein should we consume each day? So we're going to get into the amounts that we should be consuming every day in order to obtain optimal health. All right. And then how much fiber. Okay. And you notice one thing I didn't put in there about the protein, fiber, and the healthy fat. You notice that I didn't put an amount of fat that you're supposed to take in every day. Yeah. So there's certain things that we do have to quantitate because your body requires an amount, protein and fiber. But then the fats, we don't necessarily quantitate because the fats aren't doing anything special other than stimulating another product, bile acids. And so the amount of fat that we take in is irrelevant. Okay. So I'm not going to give you a number, but I am going to give you the types of fat that I want you to consume. Not so much saturated fat, although a little bit of saturated fat is not so bad. But the monounsaturated fats, the olive oils, the coconut oils, things of that nature, the avocados, those are the healthier fats. And some of the saturated fats are that they come from lean meats and things of that nature that we're going to discuss. One of my little things keep going off. Okay. So that's where we're going with this. How much fiber should we consume each day? I got my chat book, so just to see if anybody is going to put any sort of numbers there, but let's see what else we got. So the answers to the questions for today, let's see what those answers are. What is GLP-1? Well, GLP-1 is glucagon like polypeptide 1. Don't have to remember the complicated terminology for it, but what it is basically the stuff that we've been buying all across from a prescription from our doctors for $1,000 a month. They are dropping the prices. Thank you. They're dropping the prices to around about, $800 a month. And sometimes in good markets, they're dropping it down to $500 a month. So win, right? I'll put the brakes on that in just a second. The GLP-1s that you know about are Wegovy, semaglutide, Mounjaro, tirzepatide, and Ozempic. Okay. And what are the three main functions of GLP-1? Well, these three main functions are the things that I want you to park into your brains because they're so important. GLP-1 are basically things that increase your satiety. Increase your satiety means that you feel full on a small amount of food. All right. And that's what we want. And I'm going to tell you why we want that in just a second. You kind of can pretty much guess it, but it also blunts our pleasure response from eating foods. Now, do we truly get pleasure out of eating foods? No, I don't mean it in that sense. I do mean it in sort of an addictive sense. So when we eat something, there's a signal that goes through our brain, our mesolimbic system, that stimulates dopamine. And dopamine doesn't give you this joyous firecracker or 4th of July celebration, but it does say to your brain and the rest of your body, with that bite of food, that was good. I like that. And then the next bite, that was good. I like that. I want another bite. So those are the things that that stimulate our basically our instinct to eat more. When we say, I like that, we're going to eat a little bit more of it because I like that means that's good to me, good to my body. Let me have more. That's the problem. It leads to overeating. So GLP-1 blunts that. It stops it. You no longer get that, I like that. I like to have more. Take a piece of pizza, take a donut, take some spaghetti or macaroni and cheese. I like that goes away. Another good thing. That's a good thing, right? But thirdly, and it decreases or it blunts our ghrelin response. And we know all these things because we study these levels of GLP-1 in patients who are getting ready to go to surgery for bypass or sleeves. We've actually studied how their GLP-1s react before the surgery and after the surgery. So the three things to reiterate, park these in your mind. It increases our satiety, makes us eat smaller amounts on smaller amounts of food, makes us still feel satisfied on smaller amounts of food. Number two, it blunts that, I'm feeling good with that bite. I'll have another. It blunts that. And number three, it decreases our ghrelin levels. What is ghrelin? The I'm hungry hormone. All right. So if you only eat a small amount of food, the ghrelin lives in the top part of the stomach. That food, by gravity, drops down through your esophagus and then it gravitates into the lower part of the stomach. That ghrelin at the top part of the stomach never receives the signal that I'm food because food never reaches that unless you stand on your head. But if you're not going to stand on your head when you eat, that food that you've eaten, that boiled egg, never reaches those receptors in the top part of the stomach. So ghrelin says, I hadn't been satisfied. I'm turning on. So it turns on the I'm hungry hormone because it hadn't got satisfied. All right. So if we stimulate GLP-1, it blunts that response. The ghrelin cells still hadn't been stimulated because you only ate a boiled egg. But the GLP-1 being raised, if we can raise it, will blunt that ghrelin response. You won't feel hungry. Those three things are important. All right. So then what are the three food nutrients that strongly activate GLP-1? Well, we just got through telling you they're protein. And where does it work? Protein works in the small bowel. Where are these cells that secrete ghrelin? We have cells in our body that secrete all our hormones. If we want to know where we secrete insulin, it's in our pancreas, right? We want to know where the cells that secrete thyroid, it's in our thyroid gland. We want to know the cells that secrete our flight or fight response, epinephrine and norepinephrine. Well, the epinephrine is produced in the medulla of our adrenal glands. I'm not going to get too deep. And then the norepinephrine is produced at our synaptic junctions, our postsynaptic junctions with our nerve cells. I'm getting too deep here. But anyway, the cells, there are specialized cells that produce these hormones, these peptides. GLP-1 is a peptide and is produced by certain cells throughout the body. Those cells are most abundant in the bowel, in the intestine. Okay, got it? So we want to do something that stimulates those cells in the intestine, the L cells in the intestine. The protein is specific to directly activating the L cells in the small bowel. So when we eat protein, it's going to stimulate our L cells in the small bowel. Then we're going to get another surge of release of GLP-1 once we get a certain food down to the lower part of the small bowel and the colon. Okay? So, and it comes in waves. And that's the important part. One wave goes up and another wave starts. All right. So I want you to remember that. I'm going to try to show you a graph of that. And third, the healthy fats. Okay. The healthy fats activates most of the GLP-1 in the colon, that third wave. Okay. So we want to have those waves because what do we want? Well, we want to duplicate what the drug companies have done. We want to duplicate what Wegovy has done, what Mounjaro has done, what Ozempic has done. And what do? Well, let me show you how they got to the point of where you're taking a shot every week. You're taking a shot every week because They they got into the boardroom and says, okay, fine, we got this great product, but we know that if we give it in the form of a pill, it'll get deactivated in two minutes by this enzyme called dipeptidopeptidase 4. So the easiest way for us as Americans and as human beings to take medicine that we agree with is taking a pill every day. We think there's a pill for everything. So the company said, well, we can't make it in the pill. We got to make it in the form of a shot. Theoretically, you got to give that shot every day. If you're going to give it in the right dose, you got to give a shot every day. They're in the boardroom and says, we got to give them a shot every day. They says, no, 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 that'll screw up all our cells. Nobody is going to take a shot every day just to lose weight. Now, if you have to take a shot every day, if it's insulin in order to keep you alive, like type 1 diabetics, yeah, they'll take a shot every single day. But if you're if you're given the choice to take a shot every single day just to lose 20, 30, 40 pounds, nobody wants to do that. So what they say, okay, what about once every 3 days? They said, no, 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 no. Once every 5 days. No, no, no. Once a week. Bingo. Let's give a shot once a week because they took the survey and the people said, yeah, in order to lose this amount of weight, I'll take a shot once a week. All right. So they had to make the product that could last a week. So they front loaded it on the front side. So when you get that shot, you get a tremendous surge of GLP-1 in your blood. Tremendous surge. And that lasts and it deteriorates over 2, 3, 4, 5 days and goes down after one week, and then you get another shot, right? All right. The problem with that is that you're getting too much on the front end. You get nausea, you get vomiting, oh, you get a super physiologic dose of everything that the drug does. So all the functions of the drug increases satiety and basically slowing the gut down and all that kind of stuff. You get all those things. And so basically what you're going to do is give a front-loading dose of the shot that's going to last a week. So what we want to do is not give that front-loading dose. When we make GLP-1 from our own cells, we're going to make the right amount. Just like if I'm basically going to make the right thyroid amount, I'm not going to give you a super dose of thyroid hormone in the form of a pill at the front dose in order for it to last a week. I'm going to give you a pill every day. But with GLP-1 in the pharmaceutical form, a shot every day is not possible, and a pill is not possible yet. They're working on it. Don't get me wrong, but they're going to have a hard time with that. So, what can we do in order to keep our GLP-1 levels up all day, every day, without getting sick from it, without it causing muscle loss, without it causing decreased desire to exercise, decreased desire, all the things that GLP-1 is known to do. All right. All right. So we have the activation of the L cells in the small bowel and then again in the colon. And these three products, I'm going to show you how they do. So how much protein should we consume each day? Put that in the chat box. I'm not sure why this thing keeps going off. Somebody gave me the answer already. Okay, how many grams of protein are we supposed to take in each day? Anybody know? Yeah. Yep. All right. 140 grams, 150 grams. Yeah, about about a gram per pound of ideal body weight. So you got to know what your ideal body weight is, right? We'll discuss that briefly. I'm going to try to keep it short today. All right. Your ideal body weight, 1 gram per pound of your ideal body weight. My ideal body weight is 165. I'll show you what I mean by ideal body weight. I'll show you how they try to calculate it. And it's not based upon your body mass index. That's an old thing. But it's based upon the amount of fat that you contain and all that stuff, the fat percentage, okay? So about a gram per pound of ideal body weight. So I'm theoretically supposed to take in about 160 grams of protein every single day. And it's not just for muscle. It's not just for my integrity of my skin or my hair or my nails. It's for all the other systems, the thousands of systems in our body that require protein. We just happen to see the skin. We happen to see the nails. We happen to see our muscles, and we're thinking that's what protein is for. No, that's the last place that protein goes because it's the least important place as far as the body's concerned. The body doesn't care about what your muscles look like. It does, but it doesn't care what your muscles look like. It does care that you have muscle. It doesn't care how your skin integrity is. It doesn't care about your wrinkles or your excess skin. It doesn't care about your hair or your nails. It does care about survival. It does care about what protein is used for. Is your immune system? Is your gut repair? Is your organ repair? Protein has a lot more uses, about 8 systems more before it even gets to the skin and the hair and the nails and the muscles. But when you're not taking enough protein, what does it do? It sacrifices the area that it doesn't need it in. It doesn't need it. It says, I don't need that skin smoothness. I don't need that nail integrity. I need to be able to repair this kidney, this heart, these lungs. I need enough protein to do that. So it's going to rob from your nails. It's going to rob from your hair. It's going to rob from your muscles. You're going to lose muscle mass. So the protein is the places that I just mentioned are the last place that protein gets deposited, but it's the first place when you're deficient. It's the first place that it robs from. So if you're supposed to have 150 grams of protein every single day and you come up short 75, 80 grams, which most of us do, the first place that's vulnerable is our skin, hair, and nails and muscle. All right. So remember that the reason we're taking protein is not to support our bones, nails, and hair and muscle, is to support all our other systems that require our hormone systems, our immune systems, our repair systems. Okay. So hope that's clear as mud. All right. So how much protein should we consume each day? Like I said, 160 grams. Is it difficult to get in? Yeah. But if you have a regimen, and that's what this lesson is going to be about, is regimens. Because if I give you something that you can repeat every single day over and over and over again that you don't have to think about, you'll do it, hopefully. So let's see how it goes. Then how much fiber? That was fine. Somebody's putting a joke and I just saw it out of the corner of my eye. How much fiber should we consume each day? How much fiber are we supposed to take in each day? For men, it's a little bit more than it is for women. I don't know why. I do know why, but it's not going to be important here. How much fiber should we assume each day? Anybody? While I'm going, this is my second cup of coffee. I've had I've had 7 grams in my first cup, 7 grams in this cup. I've had 14 grams of coffee. I mean, 14 grams of fiber, and it's not even 10 o'clock yet. And you got to make a conscious effort at getting your fiber. See what? Somebody says 30 to 50 grams, 70 grams, 1 gram, 60 grams, 25 grams. 25 grams for women, 40 grams for men. 25 grams. All right. Do you get that every day? Around about 10 to 15% of the American population get the required amount of fiber that they need. We've got to start doing it. And especially if we're metabolically challenged, we got here for a reason, right? So we've got to start concentrating on what are the things that we're doing and begin to start putting things into action. So we need 25 grams for women and need 40 grams for men. I just take my 14 grams. I got a little bit ways to go, but every time I take something to drink with my protein shake later on, with my breakfast later on, I'll sprinkle some fiber into my meal because I can't get it with food. I can't get it with the broccoli, the asparagus. I can't get that much fiber with a meal because before you know it, I'll be full and I won't eat the amount of protein. This is not a plug, but you got to be able to take some supplements. Not a plug, seriously. So can you take 150 grams of protein every single day, 160, 170 grams of protein every single day? Not without supplements, especially if you've had the bypass, if you've had the sleeve, your stomach is small, you cannot take that much fish, that much chicken, that much plant protein without feeling full. So you have to take it in liquid form. Why? Liquid form goes through the pouch, it goes through the stomach. It does make you a little full, but it doesn't make you as full as whole foods. So not plugging anything, but you do have to take protein supplements, and you do have to take fiber supplements because it's going to be difficult for me to get my 40 grams unless every time I drink something, I'm going to drink the protein shake later on. I'm going to put that another 7 grams of fiber in that. All right. And then when I have my 2 meals a day, there'll be probably another 7 grams of fiber in the form of food. But I would never be able to get the amount of fiber if I depended totally on food. All right. All right. Let's continue going. What's fiber shoot? All right. Oh, okay. This is for those of you who hadn't been here before. This is what we talk about when I talk about influences on the internet and how you learn your information. People always put out stuff that they're biased on. And I talk about this a ridiculous paper or a good paper every time we come on, just so I can make sure that I mold your minds into that you got to think about the information you're receiving. We receive most of our news, most of our information, studies have shown, we receive it from the internet. It's okay. But we have to be careful about where we receive our health news because people have an agenda. So this is the study, and what I'm trying to do is basically show you when there's a bad study, when there's a good study, how you look at these studies. Because there is a study for everybody. There's a study that you can find, whatever your bias is, you can find a study that promotes that bias. Whether it's a good study or a bad study, it's what we're talking about here. This study that just came out that everybody knows about, that increase in acetaminophen, Tylenol during pregnancy, is basically risky for pregnant women, right? And so we've been trying to solve this problem for eons, and so all of a sudden they came out with it within a few months of looking at some papers, right? But the papers that they looked at, this is what this, so the papers that they looked at, this is the name of the study. It came out in JAMA 2024, acetaminophen use during pregnancy and children's risk for autism, ADHD, and intellectual disability. Now, I won't dwell too much on that, but again, it's sort of when you read the title, it says, "Oh shoot, now I knew that I shouldn't have taken that Tylenol during my pregnancy. That's why my kid is autistic. That's why they have ADHD." No, no, but that's what people will run with, the influencers on the internet, because they have a bias. They'll say, "Yeah, we got that problem because we took that Tylenol." Yeah, y'all took that Tylenol. Didn't matter that you had fever. Didn't matter that you had pain or a resounding headache while you were pregnant. You were supposed to just endure that, right? That's what they're saying. Let's not do that. So anyway, this is a cohort of 2.48 million children. So the numbers needed to treat were good. And it was in Sweden, 1995 to 2019. And so it says 7.49% of pregnancies recorded acetaminophen use. You got a problem right there because again, this is an observational study, and so it's relying upon people telling you, "Oh yeah, I remember." Okay, so that's the first problem. But anyway, population model, and these are the results. And this is what you have to do. You have to look at the methodology and the results and everything that these guys or these influencers are saying out there, and even people in our administration. So the HR stands for hazard ratio. Hazard ratio is 1.05, meaning that there's a 5%, anything greater than one, you take that number after one, and that's the number you're looking for. So what is a hazard ratio? It's the chance of you getting something in this particular study. So the chance of you getting autism is about 5%. 5 kids out of 100 will get autism, become autistic if their mothers consume Tylenol during the pregnancy. Wow, that's huge. 5 people? That's a lot. And this number here, 95% confidence interval, how confident are you that that number is correct? I'm 95% confident, and that range, the confidence interval, 1.02, 1.08, as long as it's a narrow number or a narrow difference, that means that the confidence interval, that 95% is valid. So on the surface, this looks valid, that 5% of people will become autistic if they use a Tylenol. And then, but when you look at the relative risk reduction, the absolute risk, then you get a different story. So after you compute it for the absolute risk, what is the absolute risk of that person who took Tylenol to have, and you look at a bunch of confounders, is approximately one, or a little bit less than 1 out of 1,000. That's a whole lot different than 5 out of 100, isn't it? So looking at, and then for the ADHD, The hazard ratio without the risk reduction part of it, the relative risk, the ADHD is 7%. 7 people out of 100 will get ADHD if their mothers took Tylenol. Huh. But, and that has a fairly good confidence level. But you take the real data, the real data says that's approximately, the absolute risk ratio is 2 out of 1,000. Okay, and so on and so forth. So this title right here basically gave and then it compared it with sibling models and said, okay, to find the sibling doesn't make sense. The mother took Tylenol and the other kid didn't turn out to be autistic and all that. So they verified the results and in the conclusions, the results said, okay, fine, yeah, acetaminophen use shouldn't be used in pregnancy. And that's what people are saying now. But they're not telling us what the data show. The data in that paper didn't show that. It showed that, yeah, almost nobody who took Tylenol, even in the observational study, almost nobody will get autism, ADHD, or intellectual disability. Anyway, I digress. Sorry about that. But anyway, I wanted to show you the goal for that particular exercise was watch what it is that you're listening to. You'll get a bunch of dietitians, a bunch of scientists, a bunch of doctors who will tell you something. I got this study that shows this. Unfortunately, you got to be able to look at the studies yourself, and that's what we do here. We look at the studies, we look at the detailed studies, and so that's why with the information I'm going to give you, it's going to be good information. All right. So anyway, that's what's needed next. It just basically says that we got to have better tracking. We got to have studies that actually look at what we're talking about. We got to be smarter. All right. Back to the topic. GLP-1. All right. The GLP-1 comes from L cells. These little yellow dots are significant, meaning L cells. Okay. Just like you have, like I said, thyroid coming from thyroid cells. You got cortisol coming from a medulla and the adrenal glands. You got the majority of your GLP-1 comes from your intestinal tract. Why is it in your intestinal tract? Well, I'll show you. So we got a few scattered L cells in the small bowel. And then later on in the small bowel, down further in the small bowel, let's see if I have a picture of that. Yeah, later on in the small bowel, in this area here, this part of the distal part of the small bowel. When I say the word distal, I mean the last part of the small bowel. That's what distal means. So in the distal part of the small bowel is a whole lot of L cells. And then in the colon is a tremendous population of L cells. And why does that matter? Because the more L cells that you can stimulate, the more GLP-1 you'll produce. All right? That's our goal. All right. All right. So anyway, what we're doing is basically with the surgery, just to be brief, is that we have L cells here, sparse in the small bowel. And as we get further and further down the intestinal tract, we have more L cells. So our goal during surgery is to bring that place of residence where more of the L cells live. Let's bring them into the stimulation cycle early, the stimulation pathway early. So if I take this part of the bowel, which was down lower towards the colon, and I bring it up here and I stimulate it with the right foods, I'm going to get a tremendous surge of GLP-1, which is what I want. All right. And we do that with the gastric bypass, and we do that with the sleeve. The way the sleeve does it is it basically takes the amount of time that the food sits in the stomach and it reduces it because I reduced the reservoir. Normally food can sit in your stomach for 6-8 hours. That's why they tell you to be NPO after midnight, because I need 6 to 8 hours in order to get your stomach totally empty so you won't vomit and aspirate. Anyway, I digress. So I'll make this stomach the size of a ping pong ball with a gastric bypass, or I'll make this stomach the size of a banana with a sleeve. And so food doesn't sit here very long, 20, 30 minutes. The food gets there and it gets down to these L cells more rapidly. And it gets down to the lower cells more rapidly, okay? And the studies are shown after sleeve gastrectomy. It blunts, remember what GLP-1 does? You increase your GLP-1, PYY, and decrease insulin, but it decreases or blunts ghrelin. So even though you're only eating an egg and it comes up here, your cells, your parietal cells that actually produce ghrelin are up here, and we've taken those out with the sleeve. That's one of the ways it works. But even with the bypass, where we leave those cells alone, the GLP-1 blunts the ghrelin, so you don't get the I'm hungry response. Cool, right? All right. So increasing satiety, the three effects, increasing satiety. I feel full on smaller amounts of food, and it blunts the ghrelin release, so I'm not going to feel hungry. And more important, at least for me, I don't have to have spaghetti. It blunts my craving suppression. I don't have to macaroni and cheese, pizza, pasta, donuts, cakes. I don't have that need to have that because my GLP-1 levels are stable throughout the day. And I'm going to show you how to do it. So if I want to, if I want to keep these things stable throughout the day, what is it that I have to do? Protein, fats, and fiber. I said protein, fiber, and healthy fats, but protein, fats, and fiber. And this is what happens when you take in protein. You take in protein, you basically get a big response and then it drops off because you have dipeptidopeptidase 4 and it's going to destroy it. So you get the surge after you take in some protein and it stimulates the L cells in your small bowel. Protein first, okay? Always protein first. I'm telling the story here. Protein first. And so you're going to get that stimulation and it's going to last a couple of hours, then it's going to go down 2 or 3 hours. All right. So then if we only ate protein, which is what a lot of us are doing, if we only ate protein, we're going to be hungry the rest of the day, primarily because we didn't get the rest of the ingredients in our meal. So our GLP-1, our satiety is going to go up for a couple, 3 hours, and it's going to go back down. We're going to get hungry again, maybe even before the next time for us to eat. So protein, then if you consume some fat during that meal, then you're going to get a second wave. And the second wave comes because the fat doesn't stimulate the L cells, but the fat that you take with an avocado or with sardines or with salmon, the good monounsaturated fats, olive oil, that stimulates the release of bile from your liver. And that bile in the form of bile salts. I don't want to get too technical, but once the bile salts gets down to the colon, then the bile salts become the big stimulant for the L cells in the colon. It's not the fat that's stimulating, but it's what the fat is producing from the liver. Okay. The fiber is important. Boy, I'm going to really get technical here, but hang with me. Hang with me. The fiber is a carrier, plus it's a food source. What does it carry? Well, let me see. Let me go back to one of the slides. All right. All right. Let's see if I can get that. This slide here, this shows, so once you secrete bile from your, I should have had a better slide for this. Bile from your liver. Say your liver is imaginary up in here, and it goes into your intestinal tract. By the time it gets down to here, the body's very stingy with its bile. Now, we want that bile salt to get in here because that's where the magic occurs, because that secondary bile salts directly stimulates the L cells in the colon. That's what one of the main stimulants. So you'll get a tremendous amount of release of GLP-1 if we can get that bile salt into the colon. But we don't get the bile salt in the colon, primarily because the body is stingy with the bile salts and it reuses it over and over and over again. So once it gets down to here, it has a resorption in the small bowel of 95 to 99%. 95 to 99% of our bile salts get reabsorbed in the small intestine and go back to the liver. It never gets into the colon. Only 5%, 5 to 10% gets into the colon. So we get a 5%, 10% stimulation of our L cells. But what if I could get more of the bile salts into the colon? I can. Fiber is a carrier. So you take in some fiber, some asparagus, some fiber in your coffee and things of that nature with your food, and then not 5 or 10% gets through, but 25%, 30% of that fiber then carries that bile salt, carries that bile salt into the colon. Once the bile salts get into the colon, once that 20, 25% is proportional to what you have there. And so you got a lot of L cells there and you got a lot of bile there. Boom, you got a lot of GLP-1. All right. So that was the dual question. So the next food I want to take in is something that stimulates bile. And then the next food along with that is got to get more bile into the colon. Fiber. Now, fiber has another effect as well that takes 24 hours in order to occur. That's the fermentation. The fermentation, I'm laughing because it's really getting complicated now. But the fermentation in our microbiome of the fiber produces butyrate. Butyrate is also a very, very strong stimulant to GLP-1 release. So you got butyrate by the good bacteria, and then you got the bile salts that are carried into the colon with the fiber. So that's why it's important. All right. So looks how it goes. You eat the first couple 3 hours, you're gonna get that spike from protein. Then you want to keep this going throughout the day. You want to keep this elevated throughout the day, right? To 6 p.m. So your secondary foods that you're taking in that same meal is going to be a fat. Sardines, eggs, whatever is going to be your healthy fats. We're going to talk about that. And then you want something to make sure that the fat that stimulates the bile is going to be carried into the colon where the magical L cells are. So protein is a direct stimulant of the L cells. Fats and fiber are not direct, they're indirect. They cause other things to occur, but those other things to occur make them occur later on in the cycle. So when you eat protein first, you get that first blip of GLP-1. GLP-1 does those three things. That first blip says, okay, I'm full, I'm not craving anymore, and I've turned off my hunger hormone. And so you want that. You want that throughout the day, all right? And why do we want that? Our goal is to take in less calories and to take in less food so that our body can do what? We've got a bank of fat that we need to get rid of. It's causing us to be sick. So the whole point of this whole thing, this whole scenario, is for us to take a little bit out of our banks every single day. So that's where the calories in versus calories out. We have got to have a calorie deficit every single day. Every single day, we've got to take in 1,000 calories a day, roughly, in order to lose about a pound every 3 or 4 days. Okay, I can show you how I got to that number, but that's basically the numbers we got to a long time ago as to when we decided how big the sleeve to be, how big the pouch to be. We wanted to lose about a pound every 3 or 4 days, roughly, depending upon what you start out with. So what we're basically trying to do with feeling full, with decreasing cravings, with increasing our ghrelin, is we want to be able to do what just calories in versus calories out won't do. Because if you just take in a calorie deficit like the people on The Biggest Loser, the television show, they strictly did it by calorie deficit, but their body functions took over. So they intentionally ate 1,000 calories a day, even if they needed 3,000 calories. Their body's ghrelin was off the roof. Then they had to exercise. They exercise to burn more fat to increase their total daily energy expenditure. So again, the ghrelin says, hey, you didn't feed me enough. I'm hungry. You just exercise, and exercise is directly related to increasing ghrelin. If they had GLP-1, they would turn that ghrelin off. All right. But they didn't. They just did it through willpower. So what do you think happened to them after about a year? They lost the weight and they gained it all back, all of them. I think that was the last report. All right. So reiterate, protein first, last 3 hours. Then you're going to combine that with a little bit of fat. It could be in the same meal. The eggs and the yolk could be that fat that assimilates that bile that gets that secondary bile acids to the GLP-1 cells, stimulated. So you can see that the levels, then the last thing comes in after fermentation and even after taking into the bile salts into the colon, the fiber. So you go from 10 o'clock, then you go to 6 o'clock, and then what's the next thing you're going to do around about this time here? Eat again. You're going to repeat the cycle over again. So you're getting the whole gamut of 8 hours, and then you go to bed, 8 hours and 8 hours, and your GLP-1 levels are going to be stable, right? That's what the drug companies couldn't do. They had to front load it on the front side. The drug companies couldn't get, so we activate our GLP-1 levels at a physiologic level every single day by using this strategy. And this is just a normal strategy. It's just that the contents of what we're eating have to be manipulated. So we have to have protein, fat, and fiber in our 2 meals. and there are 3 meals. I'm doing an experiment now to talk about autophagy, and I'll tell you about that next week, how it turns out. Because I use a feeding window from 12. My first meal is going to be a 12 to 6. All right. But this next week, I'm going to start using the early, uh, because there are studies out there, and I'm going to show you those studies next week that show you that if you do your feeding window early feeding window, like say from 8 to 2, you're going to eat it at breakfast at 8 o'clock, then you're going to, or brunch at 8 o'clock in the morning, then you're going to eat your last meal at 2, not eat anything else until 8 o'clock the next morning, other than water, coffee, and things of that nature. That particular 6 hour window has great data that shows that it actually gives you better fat loss. I'm going to show you that study, and I'm going to try it myself. My routine has always been 12, so I don't eat breakfast in the morning. I call it brunch. I'll either eat it at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 12 o'clock, and my last meal will be with 6 hours after I eat. So if I eat it at 10 o'clock, my last meal will be at 4 o'clock. If I eat it at 12 o'clock, my last meal will be at 6 o'clock, something like that. Okay. So this is the magical part. We're basically improving and keeping our GLP-1 levels all on. We're not going to get nauseated. We're not going to lose muscle mass. We're not going to lose our desire to exercise because we're not getting the super physiologic doses. Let me just give you an idea. Our physiologic doses of GLP-1 is in the form of picograms per milliliter. Okay, we got 5,000 milliliters in our body, a fluid. So any one particular point in time, but what they're giving you with Wegovy at the initial dose is 2.4 milligrams, thousands of times stronger than what your body normally produces. What if I gave you thyroid hormone 1,000 times stronger than what your thyroid normally produces? What if I gave you insulin 1,000 times greater than normal produces? We've got to get back to common sense to where, yeah, you can give high doses of something, but you can't give it forever. And what they're doing is telling you that you need to have this drug forever. So why are we getting nauseated? Why are we losing muscle mass? Why are we getting other things associated with the drugs? It's super physiologic. And our body says, we're producing picograms. You're giving me milligrams 1,000 times more. It's more than that, actually, tens of thousands of times more. You give me this much, and I'm supposed to like it. I can give you oxygen 100%, and I can heal your lungs if they're in an inflamed state with pneumonia. But if I gave you 100% for 5 days, I would destroy your lungs. I can give you water, 8 glasses of water a day. But if I gave you 18 gallons of water a day, I would ruin your body. I would ruin your sodium. I would ruin your levels. You'd have seizures and you might not make it. So yeah, we're supposed to take a certain amount. And this is why I'm not very optimistic about these drugs over a longer period of time. Do I use them? Yes, I do, but I use them for special reasons. And we'll get into that. And I use them, we won't get into it today because I don't have time. But anyway, so this is what I want you to eat. I'm giving you 7 days of foods that contain protein, fat, and healthy fiber. And if you just, I'll send, somebody told me I was supposed to send this list. I thought I did, but I will send it. Um, and I'll even do better. I'll put it on our website, and so that it'll be available so that you can have this list. And next week we'll choose different foods to give us some variety. Okay, so this is the last part of my talk. I've given you the subject matter. We're going to take protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Protein, fats, and healthy fiber. You got to take that every meal. If you have 3 meals a day, fine. I like the 2 meals a day, especially my patients who've had the surgery. 2 meals a day because it's about all you can hold. 1,000 calories a day. We're producing a calorie deficit, and we're activating the hormone system that keeps you from getting hungry on those smaller amounts of food. Why are we doing all that? Because the calorie deficit creates an environment where we have to go to our fat bank to get that bad fat out of our bodies. All right. And I forgot to mention one thing. Going back to this area, these are the foods that we're taking in, but can you sabotage the system? Yes. And that's why people maybe who are on here that have regained their weight because once you take in the good foods, you're augmenting GLP-1. But GLP-1 are coming from L cells in the small bowel. Okay, those L cells in the small bowel. Oops, let me go to it. And these GLP-1 cells have thousands of mitochondria within them. The mitochondria is the powerhouse. What the powerhouse of you got thousands. Just think of a cell with thousands of batteries in it. All right. And you feed and you recharge those batteries by eating those three food groups that we just talked about. But what can destroy that battery? Well, refined carbohydrates and seed oils, especially seed oils, because oxalams, oxidized linoleic acid metabolites. Don't quote me on that. But those oxalams basically, and I said don't quote me on that, is primarily because I don't want you to get too deep into the weeds like I'm getting. But basically, those things, those seed oil metabolites, more commonly 4-hydroxynonenols, those things are destroying the batteries within the L cells. So the batteries are weak. They're gone. They're dead. You've turned them off because it caused those batteries to discharge. It's damaging your batteries. So if you got damaged batteries in your L cells, you're going to have decreased product from your L cell. What are L cells producing? GLP-1. So if you've had the surgery, or if anybody's on this who's not even had the surgery, but who are wondering why they can't keep the weight off, it's because you're destroying your L cells. With what? With linoleic acid metabolites that come from seed oils. What are seed oils? The spaghetti, the pasta, macaroni and cheese, the McDonald's burgers, the French fries, the cookies, the cakes, the crackers. Look on the packages, and this is a topic for next week. Look on the packages and see what has soybean oil in it. The number one seed oil in America. Soybean oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil, grapeseed oil. All those things are the things that turn off those batteries. You turn off those batteries of the L cells, you are not going to get GLP-1. So if you've had the surgery where your cells were renewed and now you turn them off, yeah. So do you have more L cells that can be recruited with the revision surgery? Yes. But I've done a revision surgery on a couple of people and they still ate the macaroni and cheese, the baked potatoes, they still ate it and it turned it off again. And they said, Doc, this surgery didn't work. So that's why the importance of these webinars, because I got to teach you. Because people are thinking that the surgery is magical. It ain't. It's the cause and effect. You're basically giving you a tool. All right, I'm almost on time. Day one. All right, we're gonna have 3 eggs, 19 grams. There's gonna be some protein and some fat in it, but we're gonna add a little bit more fat in there with an avocado, half a medium, and fiber. I'm gonna give you some more details on that. So day one is your brunch. This is what I'm gonna have today. I'm gonna have eggs, avocado. This is exactly what I'm gonna have. All right, day one dinner. So my second meal is gonna be dinner around about 6 o'clock. Grilled salmon with sauteed kale, quinoa, olive oil drizzle, and water. And I'm gonna have a little bit of triple fiber here because again, I gotta take my triple fiber with every meal because I won't get my fiber loads in. I have my 14 grams. I gotta have 45 grams. I need 30 more grams. 30. All right. So I gotta put this in my drink and I'll put it in my protein shake. That's my protein shake is my midday snack. All right. So that has triple fiber over here. The fiber is inulin, acacia, and psyllium husk. Inulin, acacia, and psyllium husk. Okay, so yeah, those are the 35. And so this is 32 grams of protein. So with this meal and my previous meal, I didn't quite get my 160 grams, did I? So that's 2 meals that I got about 40 grams of the first meal and 30 grams of the second meal. I still got 100 grams to go, right? If I just did this and I said I'm full, then I wouldn't get my protein. And the other problem that we just talked about would come into effect. I would be dropping from my muscles, my nails, my hair would fall out. So I got to do something else. And what did I say we had to do? I got to supplement with a protein shake. So I typically take a whey protein shake the midday and add my fiber in it. I get 60 grams of protein that way. That 60 grams along with this 60 grams, and then I'll eat some walnuts. I'll eat some other things in between. I'll eat some Greek yogurt as my dessert. I don't think I put that in there. But then I'll get my 160 grams of protein today. I will. Okay. So this is what I'm gonna show you. So this is dinner. Okay. That's day two. Let's do the same thing. Day two. So my scrambled eggs, smoked salmon, sauteed zucchini, red peppers, mixed green, plain kefir. Plain kefir It's huge as far as the amount of protein that it has. And it tastes good too. So it's liquid yogurt, essentially. All right. It's very, very nice. So it's 400 calories. All right. So the 400 calories, people say, oh, that's too many calories, blah, blah. Well, it's the calories that doesn't matter as long as you're activating the the things that I show you on the previous slides. As long as you're activating those brakes, and that's all GLP-1 is brakes, it's control. All right. So most of my patients won't be able to eat this whole plate. They wonder about the cost and all this kind of stuff, but most of you will be able to eat a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. You'll double at it. And so you'll learn over a period of time to proportion your sizes so you don't waste money on food. All right. So protein triggers in the small bowel. Protein in here triggers in the small bowel. GLP-1. Fats stimulate bile acids. Remember, the bile acids are those magical components that have to get into this to the colon to stimulate GLP-1 in the colon cells. And they're taken there by fiber. All right. So if you don't think that that's enough fiber, again, you can go ahead and put um, the fiber here into your milk and get your fiber. So that's why I always have this little thing. This is AI generated, obviously. But anyway, that's day two brunch. Day two dinner, chicken, vegetables, my triple fiber. All right. So I grilled chicken breast, roasted carrots, green beans, and you're not going to be able to eat this whole thing if you've had the surgery or if you've not had the surgery. I struggle, and I haven't had the surgery. I struggle with taking on a whole chicken breast because of why? Because I'm sequentially activating my GLP-1. Because yeah, I do still have a little bit of fat left to lose around my midsection. So I'm still on this journey along with you. GLP-1 protein, rapid small bowel stimulation, fats, the bile acid signaling, the things that we just talked about. That's what we want them. Protein is 30 grams, fat is 12 grams, and the fiber is 10 grams. I'm getting all three components, and that includes that in there too. So you got some fiber in here, but you got most of your fiber in here. And that's what I'm saying is whey protein in order to get your protein, because if you're eating smaller amounts of food, you got to supplement. You know that, okay? I'm trying to give you the reasons why. Day three brunch, here we go. All right, so we have an omelet with spinach, mushrooms, and feta with Greek yogurt layered with strawberries and chia seeds. Is that boring to you guys? I'm just curious. Because somebody told me, yeah, it was boring and that's not, you gotta have some pancakes in there, some waffles, doc, with some candy sprinkles on top of it. To me, now with my GLP-1 activated, that waffle pancakes, that's boring. I may be offending a lot of people, but that to me is boring. But have that little yogurt over there with the chia seeds or the flax seeds on top of it is delicious as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. So to me, this doesn't look boring. I don't know. I don't know. I may be wrong, but to me, this looks pretty good. Avocado, little Greek yogurt, spinach and mushrooms. Somebody says, do not eat avocado. Why? Why is that? You don't eat avocado, or you say you're telling people not to eat avocado? Just curious. Dinner on day three, nothing miraculous about this stuff. It really isn't. But the miraculous thing, the thing you have to remember is that with each meal, these three products will keep your GLP-1 level steady the whole day without the shots. All right. So protein, 37 grams, fiber, 8 grams, fat, 18 grams. And remember what the things do. So that's your second meal. Your first meal got your levels up throughout the first 6 hours. Then you're going to eat this meal. The next 6 hours, your levels of GLP-1 are going to stay the same. You're not going to get hungry. You're not going to decrease your desire to exercise because when I took the shot before, I had no desire. Put it in the chats. People who've had the shots before that we go with them with jar. And then tell me, did you have a desire to exercise? It takes away that pleasure hormone. It blocks the dopamine receptors in your brain. So you don't get pleasure from smoking, you don't get pleasure from eating, you don't get pleasure from drinking alcohol, and those are all good things. But it's not selective on the pleasure that it stops. Stops the pleasure from sex, it stops the pleasure from exercise. I have a lot of pleasure, dopamine release when I exercise. It gives me an oomph. When I take that shot, mm-mm. Uh-uh. And you know what reinforces me not to exercise? Is I'm losing weight. But what am I losing? I'm losing muscle mass. So not only do I not have the desire to exercise, I would even have the strength because I've lost 40% muscle mass in the meantime. Hmm. Okay. All right. Very good. Let's see. Go to the next one. Day 4. Okay, we got 7 days of this. Your brunches, again, scrambled eggs. You can have eggs any kind you want to. Just keep the yolk in there. All right. That's the fat. All right. And the protein, scrambled eggs, avocado, and sauteed vegetables. You got 24 grams of protein, 5 or 9 grams, 28 grams of fat. Beautiful. Now, it's not the fat that stimulates the GLP-1. It's what the fat causes the release of. It causes the release of bile salts from the liver, which are the magical keys that once those get to the colon, and they don't get to the colon without the fiber because the bile acids are the keys to turn the GLP-1 on in the colon, but they got to get to the colon. And if they don't have fiber in that meal, they ain't getting to the colon. They're getting to the last part of the small bowel, then the bile acids are used to emulsify to digest certain fats in your intestinal tract. Once they get and do their job, the liver looks around and says, okay, bring those back to the liver. 95, 99% of the of it goes right back to the liver. It doesn't get to the colon. But if you take that fiber with it, that fiber attaches onto it, acts as the carrier, takes that other 20% to the colon. That key then unlocks those GLP-1 cells in the colon. Cool, right? All right. Day 4 dinner. It's one of my favorites. Lean beef stir fry with broccoli, bell peppers, carrots, snap peas. Put some sesame seed oil drizzle on it. I like to put olive oil. And then you're going to take your triple fiber again. So you can see that I don't have any association with triple fiber. I just found out that it used to be called 4-in-1. I just found out that this is the best way for me to get my fiber. It's only those little small little scoops. Two of those is about 7 grams. And if you need 25 grams, you take this in 3 times a day along with your foods you have here. You got it covered. GLP-1, again, I'm reiterated on this slide, small bowel stimulation of the L cells. The fats are then bile-mediated, this is what we talked about. And then the microbiome is fed by the fiber as well as a secondary effect. And that fermentation takes 24 to 48 hours. But if you do it every single day, you're constantly giving your microbiome its good food. And on the flip side of that, just to reiterate, just, re just to reiterate, I'm behind time. That's why I looked at that clock. Just to reiterate, if on the flip side of that, if indeed you take the macaroni and cheese, the pizzas, the crackers, and all that, you're going to turn off those batteries because those seed oils in that macaroni, the cheese, I mean not the cheese, but the cheesecakes, the apple pies, all those refined carbohydrates and foods, those are going to turn off the batteries. You turn off the batteries, the GLP-1 is not going to be produced. It's not. But the cool thing about it is that this process of obesity, with our GLP-1 is turned off, is not like a person who has type 1 diabetes, which is genetic. They'll never be able to produce insulin again. Never. But will you be able to produce GLP-1 again with the right strategy? Absolutely. That's the great news. Okay. So yeah, it's gonna take a while. Because if you turned them off with pizza and all that kind of stuff, like the interview that I had with the patient, and I'll show that next week. She turned it off. Is it going to take time for her to turn it back on? Yeah. What does she want me to do in the meantime? She wants me to give her some Mujaro. Will I do it? I'll let you figure that out. So anyway, but these sessions are your coaching sessions and your learning sessions. So I'm going to coach you along as well. And that's the cool thing about our program. Day 5 brunch. I love this one. Whey protein, kefir smooth bowl, topped with chia, flax, and you know how much protein and fiber that is in chia and flax? That's a good meal. That's brunch. That's a good meal. 32 grams of protein, 12 grams of fat. I didn't realize that these little seeds had all this fiber and fat. And so this is a snack. Midday, you get some walnuts, kefir, and raspberries. I didn't throw that in there with all, but yeah, you want to take a snack? Don't go for the cheesecake. Don't go for the apple pie. Don't go for the donut. Don't go for the pancakes. Go for walnuts, kefir, and raspberries. Beautiful snack as far as I'm concerned. Dinner, pork chop, my favorite. I'm actually not pork, lamb chop, my favorite. pork chop used to be, but lambs are better. They have 4 stomachs. And so anyway, the roasted carrots, sauteed spinach, water, triple fiber. Triple fiber. Go to Amazon and get it. I don't get any remuneration from it. I could care less about that. All right. 380 calories, protein 28 grams, the complete package. The complete package. Okay. So when we get up in the morning, we eat some bacon and eggs and got to stay away from the toast. But we just eat bacon and eggs and that fills us up. We're missing the component, right? Bacon and eggs, they don't have any fiber. So you're kind of putting fat into your body, and yeah, it goes to your testosterone and making your hormones, but you're missing an opportunity without adding that fiber. You're missing that golden opportunity. And I don't want us to miss these opportunities anymore. Day 6, brunch. Now, if we keep our refined carbohydrates down to 50 grams a day, having a little bit of wrap is not going to hurt us. Okay. So every now and then I'll throw something in there that you guys say, hey, you said stay away from that. Yeah. Yeah. If we keep our levels of refined carbohydrates down, which is what this is, then we can tolerate a certain amount. So I'm not going to rob you of everything. I'm not going to do that to you, but I do want to basically throw something in there every now and then. So this is a great meal too. This is a handful of almonds, Greek yogurt with raspberry. I'm sorry, that's the snack. But anyway, this is turkey and avocado wrap. I'll have that once every 2 weeks. If you're struggling with keeping your carbs down, have this once every 2 weeks. Once a week if you're able to keep your carbs down. And everything that I just showed you has keeping your carb levels down to less than 50 grams a day. And you're getting full. But if you start taking in refined carbohydrates, that's a different story. Spinach in a low carb tortilla, my bad. Greek yogurt with blueberries and flaxseed and triple fiber. All right. Day 6, we're coming to the end. Grilled chicken breast again. Sprinkle with asparagus, wild rice, olive oil, drizzle, water, and triple fiber. And then no snacks. Day 7, vegetable omelet, spinach, bell peppers, mushrooms, cheddar, avocados. So you're just going to take these down. I'll put these on the website. Okay. Snacks is walnuts, Greek yogurt with blueberries. Again, protein, fat, and fiber. Each one of these things, you'll see the fiber and the fat, which are the 2 indirect components of GLP, but they're the most important. Everybody thinks that protein, 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 protein. Yeah, protein without fat and fiber is useless as far as I'm concerned. With what we're trying to do, we're trying to get our bodies to take that fat away from our fat banks. That's what's killing us. We want to get those fat cells devoid of that trash and basically just kind of get our bodies down to a normal, reasonable body fat. Day 7, dinner finally, grilled salmon, filet. And then I'll have leftovers the next morning with the salmon and my eggs. Green beans, the green beans, lentils. The lentils are a great source of fiber, great source of protein. And there are a lot of beans, the black beans that can also do the same things, but you got to have those in moderation. But beans are good. Okay. All right. And that's pretty much it. Okay, people said somebody put it in some format today, either on Instagram and said how expensive that, doc. Yeah, you want us to go broke buying all that stuff? Well, here's the shopping list. Okay, and I'll put this on the, and you may think it's a lot, but I'm going to show you something. You're going to buy 2 dozen eggs, chicken breast. That'll break you right there, right? Chicken breast, all these things, I'll put it on the list. Okay, so you're going to have the vegetables. So this is going to be your shopping list that I'm going to put on the website. Okay. This is the fruits. Oh, you're gonna go. This is for a week of groceries, right? But I'm going to give you the secret here. It seems like a lot, but you got to have these things in order to cook these things in your house. Nuts and seeds, fiber, and then the desserts and snacks. So I'm gonna put these things on the website, and then you got to take your water in. Now, people said that's too expensive, Doc. Yeah, back in the day when I looked at research, it's the ASMBS, yeah, a week's worth of cost was $270 a week. That's a lot, right? But the key is this. That was back in the day of 2020, 2019, 2020. But if you're a bariatric patient or if the GLP-1 is hooked up, you're not going to eat that much. So instead of it lasting you a week, it's going to last you 10 days, or you're going to take half the amount. So the cost, we'll talk about that. So the food lasts 12 to 7 days, not just 7. Effective weekly cost is $135 to $160. Nearly 50% savings due to portion size. All right. Somebody asked what the website is. It's peachtreebariatrics.com. Sometimes you assume stuff. All right. So the average American spends $250 to $300 a month eating out. Bariatric patients reallocate costs to nutrient-dense food, most about 2 to 3 proteins a week, not all at once. The realistic grocery spend is about $100, $120 per week. This is back in the day. This was back in 2017, 2018. Well, I forget what day it was, but I got this data back then, right? We're going to fast forward to the day. So the full capacity, if you had a full stomach and you had to buy all those things on that list, yeah, you spend $270 to $315 a week. That's a lot. To me, it is. But when we do it bariatric adjusted and you're taking in only 1,000 calories a day because we're trying to use our fat stores as food source, because that's what the fat stores are. They're an energy source that we're tapping into, so we can only take in 1,000 calories a day. And that's going to be a small portion of those items that I just showed you. That equates to about $135 to $160 a week. Okay. That was back in the day. All right. So this is a full capacity. And this is the adjusted for 2025 here in Atlanta. So everything is going up a little bit. So this is a person who has a full stomach intact. It's going to cost a lot of money to take all those things in that grocery cart that I just gave you. But once you start getting your GLP-1 activated, if you don't have the surgery, or if your GLP-1 is activated and you have had the surgery, you're going to bring it down to here, $150, $155 a week. Okay. So let's put it in perspective. So even with higher grocery bills in 2025, medical costs. So if you still have diabetes, hypertension, sleep apnea, and all those other things, what are you actually paying? If you're not spending your money on groceries, what are you spending it on? You're spending it on deductibles. You're spending it on increasing copays, and they are going up. Trust me. You're spending on complications of the diabetes, of the hypertension, of the sleep. You're spending on a lot of money on the complications because you didn't spend it on the food. You say, okay, fine, I can get a Happy Meal for me and my kids, and we'll be just fine with just $10. Yeah, but that you pay a price for that. You pay a price with deductibles. Eating nutrient-dense food is a cost control strategy for health. Higher grocery spend today equals lower medical spend for tomorrow. That's the bottom line. Okay. That's what I want you to go with. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to stop sharing. And if you have any questions in that, I'm basically going to open it up for questions, but I am 15 minutes over my time, and I promise myself I'm going to do better. And every week I'm going to promise myself I'm going to do better. So this stuff will be on the website. And basically, I'd like to hear what you have to comment. So as I end each webinar, I want to know, and if you can please, 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 please for me, put it in the chat box. Did you learn anything new today? And if you did learn something new, just give me a yes or no, I didn't. And then if you say yes, give me one thing that you learned new today. I'm going to wait a few seconds and then I'm going to do that. Okay. Hmm. And I'm not going to say the same thing next week. I'm not going to teach the same thing next week. We're going to get different perspectives of everything that everybody's telling you on the internet. I'm going to break it down to you as best I can. And if you want me to break it down even more, I can. But I'm going to break it down as much as I can just to kind of, and I'm going to give you the exact things to do, but I'm going to tell you exactly what I want you to do. So next week, I may be talking about PCOS. Next week, polycystic ovarian syndrome. Next week, I may be talking about cholesterol problems. But I want you to continue to come back and see us, okay? All right. Let's see. Need for more information on butyrate? Will do. Yes, how GLP-1 work. Okay. I don't need salt, just a breakdown of GLP-1. All right. Very good. So you learn something new, and I appreciate that. I really do. So it makes me feel that the research that I'm doing and all that, and the surgery that I'm doing is well worth it. All right. So for those of you who are here and who've had bariatric surgery before, cool. If you're having weight regain and things of that nature, give us a holler because you do have some L cells that can be reactivated. But I need you to have this information first because it doesn't do any good because that's what they're doing with the drugs. They're not teaching you what to eat with the drugs. And the problem with the drugs is that you take a shot and you're still taking spaghetti, still taking macaroni and cheese, and you're still taking all those things, and you're losing weight. And so you said all this rubbish that these influencers are putting out there about, yeah, you got to be strict and eat this and this and this and this. I'm losing weight and I ain't did no exercise and I ain't eat, I'm still eating pizza. And you will. You take the drugs, you will lose weight despite not doing anything right. But you got a bigger loss. You're losing muscle mass because the pharmaceuticals know all you care about is that number on that bathroom scale. All you care about is that number on the bathroom scale. And as long as it's going down, you say, I didn't even exercise today. I didn't eat any my amount of protein. I didn't do nothing, but I'm doing great. But once you start losing that muscle mass, you're making yourself metabolically frail, becoming frail. You're aging and you're basically becoming more insulin resistant. I saw this patient this last week. She'd done a great job with Mounjaro. Great job. She lost like 70, 80 pounds. But I've measured her body fat percentage and it was still 40 pounds of body fat. And it was still her percentage of body fat was that was the absolute mass of the body fat. The body fat percentage was still around about 46%. She lost muscle mass, but she was so proud of the fact that she lost weight. Not where we want to go. Not where we want to go. All right. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your comments. And I will see you next week with a brand new topic. If you got any suggestions, put them in the chat box as to what you want me to talk about, and I will. You have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.